Hello and welcome to the Wisdom Review podcast. Yaz Rana has been rested and / all rotated, so you have to make do with me as your host. And I'm joined by former England batsman Mark Butcher, WCM editor-in-chief Phil Walker, and Wisdom.com feature editor Taha Hashim to preview the England-New Zealand tests and look back on another brilliant round of the County Championship, as well as the start of the Rachael Heyhoe Flint Trophy. I'm going to start with a question from one of our listeners. Freddie Warfland asked, if Joe Root has a poor series, do England stand a chance of beating New Zealand? And Butch, my question to you is, Root has 20 Test hundreds, the rest of the squad has 6 between them, I think. When was the last time England's batting lineup was so dependent on one player?
Is that an actual correct stat?
Yeah. It's
6 tons
right?
between 10 players.
2 for Burns,
Whew.
1 for Sibley, 1 for Crawley. Sorry, two
for Sibley.
1 for Crawley, 1 for Pope. Oh yeah, and 1 for Broad, so I guess that's 7. That's slightly better. Yeah.
Nicely done. 7 is still slim pickings.
Yeah.
Blimey. No, I can't. Well, I can't think of one. I mean, look, England are a long way shy of what their number 1 11 would be in this game.
You might have mentioned that before, Mark.
Do you think I have? So no, I can't remember. I cannot remember. I cannot remember a time when you kind of, when particularly going into the first Test match of the summer. What is it? Is it first day of summer today as well?
It feels like it, yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or officially, the first day of summer is the 1st of June. And, you know, have what should actually be a very, very exciting moment. There's going to be crowds back in, brilliant New Zealand side who are in the, you know, they're doing their warm-up for an important game. And England with it all to prove after a tough winter. And yet it seems to be very, very low-key. And, you know, those numbers and those, you know, stats in terms of the batting lineup tend to reflect that. However, I suppose if you look at it in a slightly different way, you know, Crawley, Sibley, Burns have all got plenty to prove after a tough winter. Zach Crawley, exciting young player. Last time he played in England, you know, in front of nobody, played one of the best innings you're likely to see. It might not have been the very last time, but it was pretty close. And, you know, Ollie Pope, fantastic young player. James Bracey looks like he's going to make a debut. There's lots to be excited about. It's just, in terms of experience, you would imagine that the Kiwis, given a fair wind and a bit of cloud cover, might make it easy work of England if Joe Root doesn't find his boots straight away.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I feel like I'm about as enthusiastic as cricket fans come.
I'd go with that.
Yeah, and even I'm struggling a little bit to get up for this series. It sort of feels like England even don't hugely mind if they win or not. Maybe that's a bit too harsh, but they're not picking their strongest team and almost deliberately so. And it's just a warm up for New Zealand. And then even with the selection debates, if England pick Overton over Robinson tomorrow, say, I don't feel like that tells you anything about which of the two they think is better. So there's only limited fun to be had there. Do you agree with that, Phil? Are you not as excited as you otherwise would be for the first sort of that Lord's hum and the first?
Well, I'm jaded at the best of times. Well, it's hard to shake the sense that this is a test trial, or that certainly in brackets on the Lord's poster tomorrow, England New Zealand first Test match of the summer brackets it's a test trial. It feels very individualised, and I say that because even if it's a good game, even if it's a humdinger, there's so little riding on it contextually that we can walk away from Lord's feeling, you know, exhilarated by the game, but there's no grander context to it. So then you end up watching the individuals. You watch the players, and as Mark says, there's a number of England players in this side that are either debuting or home debuting, or trying to resurrect their career, or trying to hold on to the start still of their career, still a nascent career for many of them. And so it's hard to shake that sense that the big stuff comes in a month or so, and you want to try and get into that squad for the first Test match against India, and then after that, the Test match summer is on. But until then, it's a peculiar thing. We're going into the first Test match, a Lord's Test match of an English summer, and you can't quite shake that sense that there's an artifice to it. There's something else going on. New Zealand, they'll want to win the game. Of course they will. So will England. But if you're if you're Southey, for example, or Jameson, and you're in your second or third spell in the second innings, you wouldn't be human if you didn't have half an eye on that World Champs Test match in 2 or 3 weeks' time. So there is a peculiar absence of jeopardy and dramatic tension, I think, in this particular game. That said, in the end, a game always threatens to break out, and as Mark rightly said a couple of weeks ago, a Test match is a self-contained thing in and of itself. And I wouldn't be surprised if, for all of the sense of it being low-key, still something memorable can break out, because that is the beauty and the kind of the enigmatic element of a Test match.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still really excited. I mean,
what?
Yeah, I am. I mean, if you look at the England team,
So young.
I mean, there's still a lot of great storylines in there. You've got the top order who are all sort of averaging 30s, have still got so much to prove. Sibley hasn't had much of a county season. Burns is, technically he's out of the team. He's coming back into the team. He was dropped in India.
That's true, yeah.
Crawley's struggled himself and not really replicated what happened last summer over the winter. And then Lawrence will be playing his first home test. Pope, we've still got a lot to see come from Ollie Pope.
But these are all individual stories, aren't they?
Yeah.
And contained individual stories.
Yeah.
Generally, with a Test match, there is the broader narrative of the result and the series story unfolding.
Yeah.
In this instance, especially with a two-tester, there's not really that grander narrative at play.
I'm just digging deep for positives because of your cynicism,
I see.
Fair play. Fair play.
Is this then? Is it part of the wider context of Test cricket being diminished and England's rest and rotation policy and all that sort of stuff, or is it just there is bigger stuff down the line, so it's just a necessary evil that this is kind of a slightly muted start, and that's kind of okay? Do you think?
Personally, if there was 3 Test matches and there wasn't a World Test Champs in the place of that third Test match, and England were respecting New Zealand's credibility and credentials by playing a 3-tester, then I'd be buzzing almost as much as you tomorrow morning. But the nature of this whistle-stop tour, it doesn't deserve the word series next to it anyway, and the fact that it's before the Lord Mayor's show, I find it hard to really get properly up for it. But once it begins, as I say, then those individual stories will come out, will start to play out.
It's a nice cheery start to the show, anyway. As Taha,
I mean, I can't wait to see Dan back. Obviously, Dan.
Well, exactly.
I'm looking forward to seeing Jameson, roaring in at the pavilion end. There's all kinds of things. That's why I was so damn annoyed last week at the way that it's been relegated before we've even begun. Now, what we hope is there are a lot of entertainers in both these teams. That, as you say, the players kind of rise to the occasion and drag the rest of us out of our torpor, and that might well happen. England, New Zealand often does.
Could you just go back to your original question as well on Root, who I haven't really thought about him so much actually in the build-up, because it's the support acts that we're talking of. But Root himself, if you take the captaincy element away from him, he was batting on a different level. Butch was out there. He saw him in India. He was batting on a different plane to everybody else. And that began in January in Sri Lanka, and that may well run through. And so you have this sub-narrative of Root's own personal quest to become the greatest English batsman out there, the most prolific batsman out there. And he obviously loves batting there. He's actually... New Zealand at Lords for Root is quite a significant fixture. He and Stokes went out there and changed the complexion of the England side in 2015 in the build-up to that great summer when Australia came over here and so on and so on. So it's a significant fixture for him. He obviously loves batting at Lords. He's made Ashes hundreds there. He's made double hundreds there against Sri Lanka and so on. So it's a big, big game for him, again, on an individual basis. And when all's said and done, we can all get behind the Root story because, it remains so tantalising to English cricket fans. How far can he go? How grand a player can he end up as? So whatever happens over the next few days, there's so many of these little stories, and hopefully they will all end up tying themselves up around one another, and then we'll end up with a satisfactory narrative at the end of it.
Yeah, and I guess with Root, when you're not looking back on this series, you might also not even think about the fact that there's World Test Championship. You'll just look at the quality of that bowling lineup, which is one of the best in the world, especially in these conditions. And if he does go out and do something special, that will just stand up as a brilliant innings just by itself. So in Joe Root's quest for greatness, this is, I mean, we already knew it was a huge sum, but actually these two tests have a big part to play in that, I guess.
Yeah, and just finally, I guess, on what's happening, there's a ceremonial element to it. They'll have, 4,500 fans in, something like that, 25%, so maybe a few more than that even. And then next week, Edgbaston, 70% capacity as a pilot event. Hopefully it goes ahead. So this game feels as much a kind of symbolic game of cricket as an actual blood and thunder kind of, spit and sawdust kind of game as well, and the fact that the weather looks to be set fair, Lords will be doing its thing, that's enough of an event in and of itself, I think.
Yeah, as Taha mentioned, Darren Lawrence's home debut, and Phil, you've been saving up a couple of anecdotes especially for this occasion.
Have I?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, well, all right. Okay. I was in... I'm a natural raconteur. I was at Chelmsford this morning talking to Tom Wesley, and he got a phone call it was before 9 o'clock, from Daniel, who is, of course, with England at the minute, 24 hours before his home debut, and he phones him up and he says, Governor, there's a bed being delivered. Now, Dan Lawrence lives with Wesley at the minute because he's getting renovations done on his house. And he's decided in his genius, the day before his home debut at Lords, to send a full 4-poster to Tom Wesley's house. But of course, there's no one there. Tom Wesley's got a job to do. Tom Wesley's wife or partner has a job to do as well. So basically, Dan Lawrence, in his genius, less than 24 hours before his home debut, is sending a whole IKEA top to bottom to Tom Wesley's house. What the hell are they going to do with it? How he's going to get it to his own house when that's sorted out a week or two later. But this is the kind of bloke that you're dealing with, Lawrence. The other story, which I mentioned earlier to you, when Essex won the double, they spent the afternoon showing the trophies around the Olympic Stadium when West Ham were playing at half-time, keep it in the family around Essex Way and all of that. Lawrence turned up, wanted to get a beer from the pub or from the bar there, and the girl behind the bar said, "Well, do you have any ID, sir?" And he said, no, I left it home. And he goes, "Oh, hold on a minute." Got his phone out, got his Cricinfo profile up, showed the picture, showed the date, and got himself a beer. I mean, this is the kind of kid that you're dealing with here. This is why he is irresistible. If he gets a few tomorrow or this week, then the cat is out the bag, and he can very, very easily be quite a lovable figure in English cricket. People don't quite know yet. You said earlier about home runs counting. He got a few away from home, but a lot of people wouldn't have seen that. Now the eyes will be on him, and he's got a job to do. If he can pull it off, potentially
our Dougie Waters, is this what you're saying?
I can see that. There's a sort of Essex larrikin element to him. Yeah. Genuinely, you can't deny your true nature, and as much as he probably like to keep it on the straight and narrow, these stories just follow him around.
So, on England's team, the suggestion is they'll go with 4 bowlers rather than 5 as they have recently. And given that Root and Lawrence will be in the top 6, they might well go in without Jack Leach. Taha, are you comfortable with that?
So, a couple of days ago, we picked out teams for peaceandwisdom.com, and I've got Jack Leach in that. I think
you were the only one to have Jack Leach, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, the sun's kind of come out. I was writing that as the sun was out. That figured in my thinking a bit, but also I saw him bowl at Lords early last month. It was the first game of the season. Somerset pulled off a pretty special win over Middlesex, and he bowled beautifully in a third innings where it was freezing, 3 for 18, 10 overs, something like that. And I still think he's got a part to play. I'm always in the favour of having a spinner in your team, a frontline spinner. Obviously there's Lawrence and Root, who can do a job there too, but I still want that, and I just want variety in the attack. I don't really want to see them going with Anson Braw over to Anne Robinson, something like that. I want a spinner, and then I want, so I went for Stone in that team, just because I thought he bowled beautifully in India, and he's, from what I've seen on county streams, albeit he's looked that level again this season.
So you left out a batter then?
What do you mean?
No, you left out both Overton and Robinson, did you?
Oh yeah. I left out both of them. Yeah.
Left out Overton, Robinson. Yeah. Played three man quick, fast bowling attack with a spinner. Yeah.
So you're a player spinner pretty much at all costs.
Yeah.
So you're in with three quicks and the spinner. Fair enough.
No, I'm not. No, not particularly.
Okay.
It's a real tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate leaving out a spin bowler. And you said if we're looking like we might be getting 4 or 5 days of glorious weather coming up as well. So it's incredibly dangerous. In which case, you probably left out a batsman, haven't you? You can say to Bracey, bat 6. That's the end of Dan Lawrence. And Bracey, bat 6. You play Overton, a position too high, and you make up the rest of it there. I mean, I said if it was going to be like a 4-man attack, you thought it was going to be a 3.5 day game. Then I was going to pick. I would have picked Overton over Robinson, because Anderson and Broad are Robinson times 10, and then pick Stone as the quick. So I'm kind of on your page there as well. But I think in order to get Leach in, I've left a batter out.
Do you buy into the idea that Leach has somehow earned his place and needs to kind of play as much as for the challenges ahead and for bedding into the team? Because he was one of England's best players over the winter, for what that's worth. I mean, it was Root and then quite a big gap, but he still emerged with credit from that tour. Do you think it's a backward step to leave him out, or is it fair enough?
No, I wouldn't say it's a backward step particularly. I just think you pick the best 11 for that particular situation. Stokes is training up in Durham. He's hitting balls. He's running in. We don't need to go down the vagaries of the selection at the moment, but come the big stuff, Stokes will be back at 5 or 6, and then it opens it up, and then you naturally play a spinner and three out and out seamers and Stokes as your fourth, and that's that. Stokes opens up this whole team. It's higgledy-piggledy however you look at it without him.
Yeah, sure. In other team news, Stuart Broad will be vice-captain in Ben Stokes' absence. Makes quite a change from the first test of last summer when he was dumped unceremoniously. And James Bracey has confirmed that he will keep. Wes Spearman has asked, why is Bracey batting out of position at 7 instead of opening or batting at 3? Is it right that England bat him out of position on debut? Phil, do you think is that a fair enough question to ask? Or England sort of,
It's a ridiculous question.
He's just getting going, the lad, isn't he? I don't think tomorrow morning he's going to be especially grumpy that he's not batting first drop when he's presented with his cap by whoever it may be tomorrow morning. He'll just be stunned, thrilled, probably mildly terrified, exhilarated by the whole lot. And I mean, purely from a cricketing perspective, obviously we don't know how he's feeling privately, but if you are asked to bat top 3 for England and to do it for the first time in your life, that's a big ask against the number 1 side in the world with a really good seam attack, or one of the number 1 sides in the world. To come in there at 7, the pressure might be off with the bat in and of itself, so possibly it's not a bad result for him personally to come in at 7. Certainly, I mean, there was no chance of him batting anywhere else and keeping wicket. He'll just be thrilled to be there, and maybe the pressure will be slightly off, and he can come out and maybe express himself a little bit more for having the gloves as a sort of side issue to hide behind somewhat. But even if England bowl first, he's just going to go out there and, that first over as Anderson's running in from the pavilion end. I mean, what a moment. What a moment for the kid. He's come out from nowhere and they like him. I can see why. It's a bit of a punt to be bringing him in at this point in his career, but what a moment. Great luck to him.
He's got the technique for the second new ball.
Yeah, very true. Very true. He's a much needed lefty in that team, by the way. So you have Burns up top. Then after that, it's just a sea of right-handers, and then Bracey at 7.
Broad at 8.
And Broad at 8 or 9, maybe. No, yeah.
I mean, look, if he'd been picked without the gloves in mind at all, and then picked as a number 3 batter, and then batting at number 7, you'd say, well, that was, well, what the hell have you done that for? Why didn't you pick somebody who bats at number 7? But the fact of the matter is, he's playing as an all-rounder. He's playing as a wicket-keeper.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny because, if you look at the squad on paper before the Folkes injury, it kind of just looked like he was a top-order reserve. You don't really think about a wicket-keeper getting injured all the time, and so... Yeah,
now, if it had been... If Zach Crawley had got injured and James Bracey played and batted 7, Ben Folkes had the gloves and batted at number 3, then you'd say that was an absolute shocker. But no, I mean he's going to be so thrilled to be playing. It looked, there's a lot of things have gone his way in order for him to get the gig, and now he just needs to go out and enjoy it and make the very most of it.
Yeah, I think in a way I see why the question's been asked, because England have formed for this slightly in terms of they've picked players and sort of moulded them into the position.
But he's never. But you're not going to pick somebody to bat at number 3 and keep wicket in a test match.
I'm not saying that's what's happening in this instance. But I can see why you might look at like England did with Ollie Pope. So when they picked him to bat at 4 and he'd never done that before, or Joe Denley batting at 3, 4 and opening and just moving him around. They do have a habit of moving players around. I'm not saying that's what happened in this situation.
No, it clearly isn't what's happened in this situation.
Yeah. But I kind of get where you're coming from. When Australia were dominant, the likes Ponting began his Australia career at 6, and yet of course he'd been already batting 3 for Tasmania. So I guess good teams blood players slightly away from the pressure cooker of a new ball. If you are a sort of number 3, number 4, then there's a bit more open, a bit more liberation for you, I guess, if you can bat 6 or 7. So it's probably no bad thing for him just on a batting level that he can get into that middle order and see what it's like without walking out at 20 past 11 with England 10 for 1. That said, if he did do that and he goes out and strums 70 odd, then you're away, aren't you, as number 3? So look, loads of ifs and buts with this one. It's a peculiar build-up to a peculiar game, I think. But the stories will evolve, I think. They will unravel as we go. And
then on New Zealand, there are 2 or 3 selection debates. First is who opens with Latham. I think Tom Blundell is technically the incumbent, and Will Young is in fine county form for Durham. And then there's Devon Conway, the new Kevin Peterson. Taha, tell us about him.
Yeah, I mean, with Devon Conway, it's all about the numbers. If you look at, so he qualified to play for New Zealand last August. He's originally from South Africa, came over in 2017 to New Zealand. So made his debut this, the last New Zealand summer.
Not yet made his test debut though, I think.
Not his test debut, his international debut. So played 3 ODIs, averages 75. That's just 3 ODIs, but then 11 T20I innings, averaged just under 60. So Test cricket's sort of just the natural progression for him now. And then he's been phenomenal in domestic cricket in general, but red ball cricket as well. He averages 66.25 for Wellington after 22 first class games. So he's kind of New Zealand's shiny new toy right now. And what a time to sort of get into that team, because it's a team that's, we've seen it over the last year. It's a perfect team to come into if you're a new guy. The way Jameson's come in, he's learning under Bolt, Southey, Wagner, the best there's been, and with Conway he'll go into a New Zealand team that was number 1 in the world at the start of this year.
It'd be great. It'd be great to see him get the nod, as you say. I mean, I've seen a bit of him in pajama cricket and his box office. New Zealand have often been very good cricket teams, and they've often been quite watchable teams, but they've not been edge of your seat cricket teams. But if they've found one here and a top order bat to boot, and they can bring him in, and you have Jameson, who's a bit of a phenomenon. He's 7 foot plenty and all of that, and devastating to face, you'd imagine. And then, of course, you have these pedigree new ball bowlers, albeit Bolt isn't playing tomorrow. Then, of course, you're the genius at 3 in Williamson. So that suddenly becomes a team not only that is good and punches above its weight and all of those cliches that attach themselves to New Zealand, but also a team that you want to get down and watch. Yeah.
And I feel like I don't think New Zealand have had this kind of selection debate in the past. It's like usually they're a team trying to sort of fill out that 11. And so Conway, in another era, he qualified last August. He could have technically, I guess, played Test cricket, already. But just the state of that team already, it's like he's had to bide his time, and now could be the chance. It's not even a nail-on certainty,
Yeah, that's what the other section debates are pretty much. So they've got a choice between Colin de Grandhomme or Daryl Mitchell for the all-rounder spot. I don't know if you've seen Colin's mullet, but go and check out if you haven't. But he didn't play with the winter; he was injured, and Daryl Mitchell staked a claim, got 100. So interesting. And then they also have a question over: do they play a spinner? I guess Mitch Santner is there. That's probably their first choice, and I guess he's a left armour, so with all those right-handers, that could bring him into the game, I guess.
Yeah, possibly.
And Trent Bolt is unavailable, definitely for the first test, most likely for the second test. You were saying, Tom, maybe they've confirmed that.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but yeah, so he just basically just took some time off, but they've got Matt Henry ready to step in and already those 3 other seamers. So finally, let's do some predictions. Phil, it's 2-0 for me.
1-1.
Yeah.
Well, always a 2-tester with England, New Zealand.
Always 1-1. Matt
Always.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't know, much less. Well, no, of course I get. Actually, you know what? Yesterday, or this morning it might have been, 12 years ago I retired now. For the first time I had a little twinge of, you know what? Net session, day before test match, quite fancy that today. Just nice day.
Who are you, Mark?
Nice day.
I thought I knew you reasonably
Nice
well.
day. No, I just had that sort of, remembering.
Is that because you were at Legoland today?
Remembering what I think that's probably what it was. Yeah, remembering what the
the
morning
games
before a
and-
test match at Lords was like. It was always I always enjoyed that, the build up to those.
Yeah.
So hang on, where were we? Predictions. I honestly don't know. I'm going to go for a 1-1 as well. I mean, England tend not to lose at home, no matter what they're kind of doing with their team and whatever problems are going on.
They're really testing the theory. But
They're testing the theory, but the whole however many rounds we've had, 7-8 rounds of county championship cricket, guys are kind of in tune. New Zealand have been looking at hotel rooms in quarantine for God knows how long, so it might be difficult for them to come flying out the blocks in this first test.
You said 2-0, but you didn't say.
I said New Zealand, yeah.
Oh, New Zealand 2-0.
He always bets against England.
Okay.
He's a hipster. He always
Yeah.
bets against England.
Well, I'm going 1-1.
Lovely. Ben, did they announce the World Test champs that in the event of a draw, the championship will be shared?
Yes, which...
Were we coming to this later? Or?
I was going to mention it. We weren't going to discuss it, but
Okay.
it feels like it essentially guarantees that New Zealand will dominate the game.
No boundary
absolutely
count.
Smash the boundary count and still end up with a shared title.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking.
And
My
it
word.
could go into a 6th day, isn't that a thing?
Is that confirmed? Okay.
We should actually check.
Well, it's been confirmed in our
Yeah.
WCM Wisden magazine blueprint that this is our model. For,
That's very
We're only going to
interesting.
hint at that because I think Joseph,
That's
we
very-
were to discuss that after the magazine came
The
out.
World
Sure,
Test Championship
but we can
final
tease it.
Yeah, let's tease
and
it.
the Bob
Tease
Willis
away.
Trophy final should be timeless. That's there we go.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
6 days. If you can't
There
get a
is no
result in
draw.
6 days, no one deserves to win.
Yeah. Throw a rest day in. A barbecue. Another
sod it.
barbecue at Beefy's.
Yeah, let's have a whole week.
I like the idea of not sharing the trophy but saying neither of you deserve to win this.
No, go away and have a good think about your actions.
Lovely. So on to county cricket, and it's been another cracking round of fixtures. There were 3 games that went deep into the final session, and we'll start with Taha's moment of the week.
Yeah, it was Saqib Mahmood bowling Lancashire to victory. I was quite shocked today to see that. So he picked up a fifer in the final innings. It was like a sort of last-gasp type of win, and it was his first-class fifer, which was a bit of a surprise because he wasn't far off playing Test cricket a couple of years ago. He was in the squad for the New Zealand tour, and he's almost sort of, I guess, not fallen off the radar. I think he's been in squads over the last year or two, played a handful of one-day games, but he's not in the Archer, Wood, Stone category right now. He's not one of the first-class titans like Overton and Robinson, but he's a heck of a bowler, and I'd almost sort of forgotten about him in a way. But he's had a pretty good 2021 so far, actually, leading wicket taker in the PSL before that got canned. He's done sort of quietly well, for Lancashire right now until this weekend where he was on the TV, he's on Sky, and then you get the real good look at him, and he was bowling, proper fire, and a couple of the wickets that got clipped up on social media, and he dips one into Will Frayne, sends the stump, dancing, and then a few minutes later, 2 hours later, Steve Patterson gets one that moves away from him and takes off stump out, and a nice reminder that he's a heck of a bowler. And then by the end of the day, him and Parkinson were going at it. And I know you guys talk about Parkinson a lot, but I'm not always on this show, so I'll talk about him now. He was, he's proper. Like, he's got, he's ripping it. He looks like he's got the consistency too. And I'm sometimes worried about talking up guys, but there's a reason those two were on on the on the front cover of Wisdom Creek Monthly, a year and a half ago. They're two proper talents.
Yeah. I did those interviews. Mahmood in particular, really, really smart, sort of cerebral kind of cricketer, thinks deeply about his bowling, technically brilliant, got a bit of reverse on the final day there as well at Old Trafford. He's already a really good one-day bowler, a good white ball bowler, and England like him, and he's made his debut, I think, in both forms for England in white ball cricket. As you say, he's got a few to jump over in red ball cricket, but we don't have to talk about people in those terms. Just taking the new ball for Lancashire, who are now top of their group.
Yeah, that's true.
I backed them at the start of the season.
Yeah. Only unbeaten
incidentally.
in the country still.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think sort of 3 or 4 wins from 7 and so on. And it was apt that the two of them saw it off. Obviously a huge game, both teams at the top as well. And with the extra points for a draw now, it had a lot riding on that final day. For Parkinson to be there at the end as well alongside Mahmood, appropriate that those two saw it off. I also gathered that Bumble put Parkinson in his all-time Lancashire 11.
Or at least of the last 50 or a bit more years, yeah.
Right.
It was from the time that Bumble started playing, wasn't it? So it was 65, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's big props. And I know Bumble fancies it sometimes, but, he wouldn't have done that without due consideration,
Over Flat Jack Simmons.
Flat Jack, of course, yeah. No, it's really, really good to see. Look, let's just leave the Parkinson story to one side because we all get far too carried away with it, But yeah, fair play to Lancs. They're looking like a really good side.
And we don't want to talk about the Mahmood England question, the Test question. I mean, because it was proper reverse swing, which is something that is valuable.
It's just so many, so many to overcome, and England like to silo cricketers. I think he will play a lot. Or certainly will play more for England in white ball cricket. Red ball still takes a bit of a leap of faith, I think. He's not absolute exocet Mark Wood pace, and he doesn't have the frame and the height, the trajectory of the other lads that you've mentioned, Robinson, Stone, etc. So he's somewhere in between. But in white ball cricket, if you can get it going as well a little bit in those middle overs, and he does have that very quick arm, then there's a career there for him, definitely.
Yeah.
There are going to be 2 very large vacancies at some point within the next 2 years, maybe shorter time period than that.
True.
So very handy to have somebody who has that sort of skill, because often we're talking about players with pace, or players that can bat a bit, or players who can do a bit of this and the other. There aren't as many guys knocking around who have the skill that somebody like Ollie Robinson looks to have. I'm not sure what his his reverse swing credentials are, which Saqib obviously has, and I've seen him do that in white ball cricket the last 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
So there is another guy with another set of who's highly skillful, but they're in a different way to somebody like Ollie Robinson. And the two boys can't go on forever, so more power to him.
Yep, fair point.
I mean, he's a slightly different bowler to anyone else England have, right? He's more of a slingy guy. And
he's more of somebody that you would want in, playing in Pakistan or playing with a kookaburra ball in Australia or something like that. He's not going to be running in and making the ball jag sideways. As the guys who have so much enjoyed bowling early season here do. So you're absolutely right. Do something different. He might end up with the Dean Headley distinction of sort of being first name on the team sheet when it's flat as all hell and 50 degrees in Adelaide. But being left out on the green nibbly ones, But you need bowlers who can do all these things.
Just a brief thing on him. I just remembered from the interview that I did. He's the first bowler that I've ever heard say that he has a different action for red ball and white ball cricket. I don't know. You might have heard that, Mark, from certain bowlers, but to me it was news, and it
different run up too, right? A step longer.
Different run up, half a step longer, resulting in a longer delivery stride. And his belief was that with red ball cricket, where he's trying to hold the line and get a little bit of a way swing, a shorter delivery stride keeps better control in his action, and the wrist therefore is in a better position to keep that line, that sort of 4th, 5th stump, off stump line. Whereas in white ball cricket, when he's trying to hit the pads, he's trying to get a bit of reverse, he believes that a longer stretch just changes the trajectory of his arm, trajectory of that angle.
Gets
a
lower,
bit.
yeah.
It gets lower, therefore a bit
promotes
more.
it going in. Wacker used to do exactly that.
So he had a different.
The older the ball got, the lower his arm would get. He'd try and get over the top. try and get a bit of outswing going with the new ball. Then with the old ball, he'd get longer and lower.
Yeah. Nasty.
And make it knock your toes off.
Just he came up with that himself. This wasn't a coach idea. It was trial and error from the lad himself. Just a little glimpse into how he goes about his cricket. He's an impressive and interesting kid.
Yeah, I quite enjoy whenever anyone reverse swings it as well, because one of the lines that's come out from Australia sort of more recently from the Sandpaper Gate stuff is that, well, no one reverse swings it in the world anymore since Sandpaper Gate. That was the sort of the global moment when everyone was like, okay, we've got to start behaving ourselves now, rather than it just being Australia struggling with it slightly.
Well, he was definitely getting it going on Sunday.
Yeah, and as was Anderson at Chennai and a few others, but yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, that was a great performance from Lancashire, as mentioned. There were runs from Keaton Jennings and Josh Bohannon, who now averages 46 in first-class cricket, which is pretty good going. Tom Bailey took 3 for 6 in 14 overs in the first innings, which is also pretty good going. And Danny Lamb made 61 on the same day as his sister Emma was making 100 in the Rachael Heyhoe Flint Trophy.
They're brother and sister? Yeah. I didn't know that.
The Lambs. Elsewhere, Surrey beat Gloucestershire by an innings. Hashim Amla, standing as captain, made a big 100. Dan Moriarty claimed his 4th first-class 5-wicket haul, which, considering he's only bowled in 6 first-class innings, is pretty good going.
Have you seen much of him, Mark? Moriarty?
Only really in white ball cricket, but he's spoken very highly of him.
They like him here?
Yeah. I mean, he took eight wickets in the match, and Verdi took 7.
Yeah.
And that squeezed Group 2 quite nicely, although I think Surrey have got to have played an extra game.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think if they win all of their remaining games, then they're well in the mix.
So that's squeezed that one out. I mean, the only one that is a runaway at the moment is Lancs, isn't it? On the top of what was that? They Group 3 now. I can't remember which way round it is, but Group 2, Somerset, Gloucester, Surrey, very very tight.
Mm-hmm.
And the Warwickshire, Nottinghamshire, who's top of that one?
Well, Essex are top, but they played
Essex
one game more.
Is tight as you like, and as you say, Essex have only got 2 games left, so the other 2 are breathing right down their neck. So it's gonna come to a ripe old finish, which is very nice.
It's great.
I don't know if you saw, but Will Jacks absolutely ragged one in that game for his maiden first-class wicket. I think it was Parkinson-esque, which I think we're allowed to say.
But not Warness.
Yeah, it's what I was thinking out.
I saw that drift as well. Drift away from the right-hander and then turned on a dime. Yeah,
left it and it took it off stump. Yeah, it's quite nice to see a sort of almost an old-fashioned style bat for absolutely ages and then spin them out kind of game. It feels like that's the kind of win that Surrey would have got quite a lot in your day.
That was the way we used to try and do it. Yeah. But again, you get a quick change in the weather and the conditions change again. Again, sort of one of the beauties of county cricket in England. If you manage to play, I mean, we're going right the way back to my first pod, I think. But again, if you manage to play between all the championship cricket all the way from late April all the way till late September, you're going to get these wild changes of conditions, and those that and that for me is the best teaching ground really that there ever was. Why do you think so many, apart from it being the Northern Hemisphere summer and people being able to earn some money, but people would flock here to come and finish off their cricketing knowledge. And it's one of the dangers about having the 4-day championship season squeezed into 2 blocks, one at the beginning, one at the end. You don't get that natural sort of change in conditions to when that happens. So it's good. It's good to see games being won in different ways like that.
Absolutely.
A few other results. Northants beat Sussex by 7 wickets. Ben Sanderson claimed yet another fifer. Worcester beat Derbyshire by an innings with Dylan Pennington claiming 9 wickets.
Did he? I didn't. Yeah, I like him, Pennington. Tall, good under-19s bowler at the time. Kind of lost his way a tiny bit, but I saw him bowl at the start of the summer at Chelmsford, and he looked like he had a bit of rhythm back. Yeah, he's another one. Got a lot about him.
Good 19th century name as well. Right?
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Warwickshire overcame Notts' resistance late in the final day with Michael Burgess taking an excellent leg-side stumping off the seamer Oliver Hand-Dalby, which was good. Phil, your moment of the week.
Well, from that group, as Butch says, it's wide open in the Notts, Warwickshire, Essex group, and Durham as well, right in the mix. And Essex went up to Durham and misfired again with the bat in the first innings, but they were saved by this lad, Michael Pepper, who I've heard quite a lot about in the second team. He captains the 2s at Essex. He played 3 first-class games for a highest score of about 22 before that spread over the last 4 years. He's a youngish lad, and he came in at 4, replacing Lawrence. Essex were 2-0 pretty much on overcast morning. Durham's excellent seam attack, and he hit a really nice 90 odd. And I think the next highest score in the innings was 20. No, I've got it here actually. 28 was the next highest score in the innings. Essex crept up to 180, and then they're seamers, and they are formidable. With Sam Cooke, who I mention it seems every week, he just doesn't bowl a bad ball. Then they rolled Durham first in his lead of 80 odd, and were able to win the game in the end quite comfortably. But that was a 6-pointer. If Essex had gone down, then their race would have been run. I think Durham still have a bit to play with, but yeah, that group is solidifying the quality of this particular system. I think because 4 of the 6. In fact, 5 of the 6, because with Worcester winning, Worcester have won 1 game in 7, but they can still, with a strong run, they can even nick that final slot as well. The top 2, of course, go from the 6. There's only really Derbyshire who aren't really featuring in that group. Now, this is great. We've cried out for context in 4-day cricket and county championship for a long, long time, and now we have it. It's great.
Yeah, and that's actually something you can only really test by playing through a season in a new format, I think. Like, you have no idea before you start out if there's going to be, loads of absolute thumpings, and actually the top 2 emerge pretty early on, then it feels like a bit of a dud. But it's just utterly borne out the system that, you've got, as you say, every group is so close. There's in Group 1, there's 13 points between first and fourth. Group 2 is the same. Group 3, you got Lancs far and away, but then 2 points between Yorkshire and Northampton, second and third. So,
and again, it's shown in the numbers. I saw Lancashire tweeted the streaming numbers for the Roses game, which were through the roof compared to all other years where they've been running the streams, and earlier in the season as well. So, the story is out there, and people are starting to get behind it. The death knell of 4-day cricket has been prematurely rung for many, many times, and we're seeing it again here. It's arguably been more engagement in this year's competition than there has been in many, many years.
Stream it and they will come.
Indeed.
But should we come to your moment of the week then?
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah, all right.
Well, I was gonna go for Leicester turning over Middlesex, but I've decided against it because I've just remembered that extraordinary 143 run partnership to win a match for Alnby in the Lincolnshire League between Harry and Aaron Brindle.
Lovely stuff.
Yeah.
Did you get that from the cricket paper that you've been flicking through?
I did. Well, I sort of read it I saw it on a tweet a couple of days ago and thought that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Lots of all those stories in club cricket and stuff about guys having a game with their old man and stuff. Yeah. The father and son. I just had my kit in the boot and somebody didn't turn up and I got a game. But this is very similar, except for the fact that they batted together, put on 143 runs, and how many people can say they did that with their mum?
Yeah, beautiful.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, nice. That wins on the moment of the week competition.
Probably is a bit better than Marcus Harris making 180. I suppose we should talk about that a little bit, which was
look, whatever rocks your boat.
It's just Middlesex throwing it away again, as that's kind of become their habit recently. I mean, I don't know, sounds a bit harsh saying, obviously Leicester did play well, but they were setting 300 and plenty, and there's no team better at the moment at finding a way to lose from seemingly impregnable positions. Marcus Colin Ackland also made 120 odd, and they were 300 for 2, I think, on that day. Is that right, Taha?
I don't know, but that Middlesex bowling attack was very young. Bamber, Anderson, I think Helm was the oldest, he's 27, and the left arm spinner, Walawita, and Luke Holman. I mean, very.
That's a bit of bite, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they're just having a. Yeah, I mean, but the thing is that their bowling's been the strong point of the season. Bamber's been their best bowler, but it's just the batting that hasn't clicked. And it looked like it might have clicked here at the Oval last week against Surrey. Hanscom finally getting runs, Gubbins getting a ton, and it was like if they could maybe have pulled off the win there, that was like, this is maybe a turning point. But they are just having a bit of a stinker. I mean, I've been at Lords for quite a few of pretty much all their home games this season, and it's just like Gubbins looks a class apart, but he's had the odd good score, but that batting lineup is really lacking bite, and then you have the bowling lineup not performing in the last game basically. So
yeah, because you've written before sort of about like looking kind of under the surface at what's been going on in Middlesex, what they should think, because it's been a poor few years, but you at this point, when it's been this long, you do kind of wonder if it is just a personnel thing. Basically, you look down that batting lineup and there's no one you'd count there as like a banker. They're all like averaging low to mid 30s. And again, with the
it's been a few years now, hasn't it? I mean, that's why the sort of talk came up during the game here, that Gus and Stewie Law are under big pressure. You know, the natives are getting restless over there at Lords. Wow. You know, how much of that is their fault? I suppose you can look at recruitment, you look at the player pathways and who they're bringing on, etc. But yeah, I mean, there are some sort of rather angsty calls for one or both of them to go.
There was stuff off the pitch as well, wasn't there? You know, Milan left without too many Christmas cards, you know, and him and sort of Nick Compton beforehand. It was the back end of Nick Compton's time. They didn't get on, and they've lacked that kind of pivotal figure, I think, to tie the whole thing together. And when you give a county captaincy to an Australian overseas player and not whisper it a pedigree Australian player, then that is a big risk. That is a big risk. You know, we've seen better players than Peter Hanscom, with all due respect, struggling to make runs in the early part of the English season. I mean, Pujara couldn't get a run when he played for Yorkshire a couple of years ago. Labuschagne averaging next to nothing so far. So, big ask, as Mark says. Recruitment may be a question mark there, but yeah, it's tough times north of the river.
Yeah, especially with Hanscom. If you sign an overseas batsman and make him a captain immediately, what you're looking for is a guy who, you know, come his worst season, is still going to average maybe 40, right? With Hanscom, you know, doesn't have a bad test record under him. Has played test cricket for Australia, you know, and scored test centuries. But when he's actually played county cricket, he doesn't have he's played for Gloucester, Durham. Doesn't have a really Yorkshire. I think, you know, he doesn't have a record to really speak of in glowing terms. And to just give him the captaincy, I think, it seems a big ask. And he's, you know, he batted well last week, but I just don't see him being the guy who's going to average 50 year on.
I think it's a massive
really tough ask
indictment of a club the size of Middlesex.
That they don't have anyone else.
That you're having to ship in a captain of that club.
Yep.
From overseas, whoever it is, actually. Surrey did it with Graham Smith. I remember saying to Stewie, I said, you're absolutely mad. Not because Graham Smith wouldn't have been a great captain and a great player, but because he looked like he was about 3 stone overweight and his ankle was knackered. Yeah,
well, it lasted no more than a couple of weeks.
I'm not a big fan of overseas captains anyway. Full stop. But anyway, there we go. Their problem.
My moment of the week was from the Rachael Heyhoe Flint Trophy, which got off to a blistering start on Saturday. It was Western Storm beating Thunder by 1 wicket off the last ball of the game, so literally as close as it can get. Shrubsole hit 6 not out to help them recover from 200 for 7 and 250 for 9, chasing 290. And the moment itself, when she hit the winning runs, was nice because it was I was in the Old Trafford press box, thought I'd head up there to watch Parkinson bowl and got a good 10 overs in. But for just a little bit, my attention was diverted to the YouTube stream of that game, as was basically everyone else in there, just gathered around a couple of laptops to see the final moments, which was nice. Yeah, well, look, the weather was good. 3 of the 4 games were brilliant finishes, tight finishes. 400s made on the first round of games as well? Is that right? 4 individual hundreds, I think? That's right, yeah, and only 6 including Emma Lamb, as you mentioned. Yeah. I think Heather Knight as well strummed a 90-odd. So, whoa, Black Bennett. So, yeah, impressive stuff. And the thing is, you want a range of players making runs, making big runs, not just your usual suspects, you know, because you can kind of look through a scorecard and half expect Heather or Tammy Beaumont or Nat Siver to be making big runs. But when it's the aspiring players as well, not just making 60s and 70s, but actually making proper, significant hundreds, that's promising, I think. Yeah, Sophia Dunkley in particular is a really good young player. She made 100. Amy Jones is obviously a part of the system, but she's constantly one of those names that you're putting out there to have a defining year, to have a breakthrough season. And we've been saying that for probably a bit too long, really, about Amy Jones. But she's hit 200s in 2 games, including 163, 160 something, which I think is a record in the tournament.
So yeah, it's good that there are big scores out there and a range of people making them as well. Because this is what you need. You see it in Australian women's cricket. It's the depth of quality that England are having to aspire to. They're not there yet, but all right, tiny sample size, but these are good signs, and it gets the trophy, gets the tournament up and running as well. It probably needed that, and as you say, the eyeballs are on it. It's a big year for women's cricket because last year was through no fault of their own a washout. So it's good. It's good to see.
Yeah, as you mentioned,
big run chases there, weren't there?
Yeah,
well, the
290
old
odd one
Shrubbery
of the
getting the Western Storm over.
The Shrub.
The Shrub, 61 from 41 from her, chasing 295, and
Yep.
Sarah Glenn as well.
Yeah,
she kind of shone brightly for a short period of time for England, didn't she?
Well, she's an interesting cricketer.
As a spin bowler.
She's an interesting cricketer. I mean, the first proper leggy that England women's side has had, and they need that desperately. All the other good sides out there have got leggies, and so to have her come through, good signs. Very good signs.
4 for 21 for Charlotte Taylor, who's leading wicket taker last season.
The mystery spin of Charlotte Taylor.
Yeah.
Mystery spinner, in inverted commas, think of the thing, right, Zaha?
Yeah, well, I mean, she sort of drifts the ball away from the right-hander. She told me she basically just bowls arm balls, and she's going out under 3 runs and over from these first 2 games.
You interviewed her a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it was really great. And she's near the, she's got the most wickets in the tournament's history right now. So.
I used to hate bowlers like that. The drift bowlers, just goes in the air.
We had one at Cheam Cricket Club. He was absolute club legend. Played way beyond his 50th year. David Morgan took over 1,000 first team wickets in the Surrey Championship. Just absolute legend of a man.
Drift on the wind. Yeah. This lad Mark Harm, a year above me, Billericay boy, hated facing him. If you're out there, I hope you've stopped, Mark. Terrible.
So just the details of that first Amy Jones 100. So Central Sparks were chasing 280 to beat the Diamonds. So she made 100, but she got out and they were 196 for 8 and looked out of the game. And then Sarah Glenn and number 10, Emily Arlett, hit her.
Any relation?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll find out, but I don't think so. They put an unbroken partnership to seal the game and against a proper international class bowling attack. And finally, the T20 Blast starts next Monday, and with it, the cricket draft powered by Wisden.
Oh, yes.
An all-new, free-to-play fantasy game in partnership with the PCA. Prizes are supplied by New Balance, and there are benefits to signing up as a cricket club as well as an individual. Head to fantasy.wisden.com to play now. Have any of you checked out Made a Team yet?
I've checked out the draft of the draft, if you like, the soft launch thing. Checked it out. I'm the first to criticise you, Ben, but I thought it was absolutely great, genuinely great, and it deserves to be signed up by everyone who could give a toss about cricket out there.
I missed out on the rollout. Then it's the first time hearing of this.
I got goosebumps when I saw my name and then Director of Cricket underneath it.
Yeah, it's so good. It's a lovely touch, isn't it?
It's nice.
I can't believe you didn't ask for my consultation in something that I'm bound to be playing every week.
And so what do you need to do, just to reiterate?
Yeah, just go to fantasy.wisden.com to check that out. It's, as I say, free to play, which is a good thing, and there are prizes. So,
do we have a cut-off point when you got to get your team in?
No, you can. So you can join even if the competition has already started, and there are if you've played the Fantasy Premier League game, there are sort of game week leagues. So if you miss the first league, then you can compare yourself to the teams, to the people who signed up for week 2. You can create private leagues or public leagues. When you join up, you'll be put into a league with other people from your cricket club as well as from County U support. What other details I to get in there? The one little twist, I suppose, is that the trick is in squad management rather than picking a best first 11. So you can pick a squad of at least 15, but as many as you like beyond that inside your budget. So you can pick lots of players if you want to have lots of sort of rest and rotation, as is the fashion these days. Or you can just pick a very high quality 15 and hope that that covers it. And
what's your budget? How many mid-ranking players would you have to buy if you wanted to stretch your squad out to 20, say?
Yeah.
How many Benny Howells make up a Chris Gale?
Naughty, but yes. That's what I meant.
You get a budget of 1.5 million. We've gone a bit generous on this, but we might well cut it down for future games. But 1.5 million, and the top players are checking out at just above 200k, I think. So you can get a pretty good team inside that budget, but you do need to just watch your purse strings a little bit. But it is good. I think it's genuinely a good one. I think you've in the past in other sort of guises, not before Wisden, we've done fantasy games that have been a bit sort of rough and ready, whereas this is if you don't mind me saying so, is a high class product.
Yeah, lovely. Get onto wisdom.com, order a bottle of whiskey and pick your draft team.
We'll be the judge of that.
That's all for this week. Thanks very much, Phil, Mark and Tara, for joining me. If you did enjoy listening, please head to YouTube, maybe give us a nice comment, or maybe you can give us a nice 5-star review on the podcast app. Cheers.